It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, September 25th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that's checking in on what the Flyers roster could look like at this point in training camp.
Changes are coming.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. You can find us over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, your favorite thing to talk about, Gritty, had a birthday yesterday. So happy belated to Gritty. I'm sure you're thrilled to see the Chaos Corner return.
Oh,
for
yeah.
A second
Just
season.
a thrill a minute. Yes. Just my favorite thing.
I love Gritty, and I think it's great that they celebrate their birthday. And
I'm so happy for you.
There was some footage going around of Gritty in their Nicole Kidman outfit running around town. That kind of went viral. That's always fun to see. So, again, happy birthday to Gritty. All right, moving over to our discussion of the Flyers roster updates. Obviously, the Jett Luchanko discourse has continued, where there's a percentage of people who are saying, let him make the NHL roster, let him have a few games. We talked about it to some extent on yesterday's show. And I think I'm still in the same spot as I was yesterday, where I think I do think that the right move is to send him back to junior, but I would not be upset if he earns a couple of NHL games and then gets sent back. I think it is important for him to earn it as the opposition gets stronger and stronger. If he continues to show that he kind of is ready and belongs at the NHL level, I think you can reward him with those couple of starts. But I do think he should go back to junior because I do not think at this young of an age he's ready for the rigors of a full 82 game NHL season.
Well, I'm going to just say it this way. So Sidney Crosby played his first year in 05-06. That was after 2 years in the queue. After he scored 135 points and 168 points. Then when he played in the NHL, he scored 102 points. If you're telling me that's where Jett Luchanko's at, then I say, sure, Rachel, he should start the season, but he's not there. So no,
well,
he shouldn't.
That's saying he should finish the season. I'm saying he should start the season. Again, if he earns it based on the rest of the preseason and there's space for him and they decide to give him a few games and then send him back. I am in no way suggesting that he should be on this team for the entirety of this season.
No, I know that, but it's just like, so where are you putting him?
I'm putting him probably at 3C.
So he's 3C. So now Paling's going to be at 4C, and who's not playing because Jett Luchanko is going to play a few.
I mean, maybe Scott Lawton, maybe Noah Cates, depending on what's going on in Noah Cates' land.
Yeah, I don't know.
So,
I don't think that's going to play out very well.
Well, I just think that for a couple of games, for one of those two guys to sit in the press box, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. I don't, again, not a long-term thing, just for 2 to 3 games tops at the beginning of the season. But I'm sure the discourse will continue. But
I'll be part of the discourse. Like, it's no offense to Jett, but he's literally played like 114 games in the OHL. That's not enough. It's not enough.
I think like the Crosby comparison is a little too far.
No, but it's just to show you
the-
like that's a guy who they did that with and he was ready. I'm
Yeah.
showing you a guy that's not close to that, that isn't ready, but you kind of want to like give him that as a carrot. And I'm like, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but he hasn't played enough games in the I don't think to deserve that. I don't care what he looks like in camp. Camp is
Yeah.
camp,
Well,
preseason's preseason.
yeah, and that's why he's got to go back eventually. It's just a matter of when. So I think using that as part of the conversation, looking at the forwards here, we have given our thoughts in the past, before camp started, of where the forwards lie and what the depth chart looks like, and it's still like up in the air, in my opinion, on whether they go with 14 forwards or 8 defensemen. And who gets that last spot and what the positioning looks like kind of at the bottom there. Because, I mentioned Noah Cates, potentially getting sat for a couple games. Well, that would put him at the wing for sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
If Luchanko was the 3C, Paling was the 4C there. But then you still have to put a guy like an Abels on the roster, like somebody who can play center, who when Luchanko goes, moves up into the 4C position. And then Paling becomes your 3C, or Cates is your 3C, if they decide to play him at center, which I don't think they will, to be honest.
No, I think they're going 8 defensemen because I wouldn't do it. So that's what I'm expecting them to do.
Yeah, I think, given everything, that is the most likely scenario. But I also think, and we have talked about their lack of quality depth at center. Are they going to want an extra body there of somebody who can play center, or are they going to just count on the Scott Lawton solution?
Yeah, they're just going to count
Um,
on Scott Lawton, and if they run short a player, he'll put Nick Seeler on the wing. He doesn't care.
Yeah, and I think that given that they actually have the depth at left wing to support that if Lawton moves over to center, they already have like 4 other left wingers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's a big problem, but I just think that it's like this little jigsaw puzzle that they're going to have to figure out in terms of who they're going to put at the depth center positions.
Yeah. I mean, I just always think it's problematic if you're putting a defenseman on the wing. I've never liked it. I don't think there's ever any sense to it.
Well,
But
they could also force a different wing to play on the other side, like an Owen Tippett, for instance.
they could. I don't know if they will, but they could.
Yeah. I think that is a potential solution there as well. I don't know that it's ideal for him, but I think he could do it in a pinch.
Yeah.
So the other options there, which is really what kind of is disappointing in some ways, is that there's really no wingers that have an option here. You have to be able to get, or have to be able to play center
Correct.
in order to have an opportunity here if there's an additional roster spot open, or God forbid there's an injury situation where they have to roster somebody else. You 100% have to play center in order to get that spot, which kind of eliminates Ollie Lixell, unless Bobby Brink tanks it so badly.
That's his only chance. Yeah, that's it.
I know. And I just don't see there being any other guy but Lixell that's going to get that opportunity at this point, because I think that's the evidence we have thus far.
Right. I mean, Oscar
preseason game.
Eklund's not going to have a chance at that. I think Abels, they're not using him in the bumper because why would you? He's a big guy with hands, but
Mhm.
they're not going to do that. And if they're not going to do that, he's going back too. So, like, I would have messed around with that in preseason. Like, it's the perfect time and the perfect place to do it. But I guess they figure, hey, our power play is good now because it's just going to be. They just had
Well,
this belief. They just had
I
this
think that's a
belief like they
TBD
did the last 2
because-
years. Huh?
Yeah, I think it's too early in preseason to make that judgment. I think
Well, they had
that,
2 games. They could have played him in the bumper in any of those games. They didn't do it.
well, that's fair in terms of the specific power play
Right. Like, why are
positioning.
they? I've said that at the very beginning. He's a guy who could play that position. Why wouldn't you even test it? This is the time you test it, and they're not doing it.
Yeah, hopefully they test it in one of the next 2 games and
Yeah,
rejigger.
I
Well,
hope.
Yeah, we just made a point in yesterday's show that the two different rosters between the first game and the second game, we had high energy in the first game, kind of older in the second, slightly older in the second game, and it was lower energy. And the power play units in the second game were just kind of made up nonsense, essentially, because the guys that could really, really play power play were in the first game. So we need to shuffle that up and rejigger it to make sure that we have the right guys out there testing out the power play options, to your point. We haven't seen that yet.
Nope.
So I think that's really the next step on that front, and that'll help determine these forward spots. But I think, if Luchanko earns a spot, that could have an effect on the defensive side of things. And, the 7 or 8D conversation, we're going to get into that, plus the goaltending depth chart as it currently stands coming up next.
Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I would still bet on the Jets. I would take them over the Denver Broncos. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com.
On tomorrow's show, we'll have more reports from training camp, any cuts that are out there, and a Flyers versus New York Islanders preview, which is the next preseason game, where hopefully we'll get to see some of this rejiggering and some more options for the Flyers there. On the defensive side of things, then, if we're at 7D, like if Luchanko gets an extra forward spot for the opening roster, then you have to go 7D. That's
Mhm.
where you are, right? And so
Yeah.
nobody gets a chance. And then if you're then going to send him back to junior at some point and then maybe call up a defenseman, you got to look at the cap, and that'll be a whole thing, right? So it's a risk to do the Luchanko thing just because you'll have extra cap decisions to make.
Well, on travel, you have to see another reason why you can't play Luchanko just for 2 games is because you're on a West Coast swing. So now, if you're going to send him back while you're on the West Coast swing, you got to have somebody meet you, and I don't know, like what or Calgary or whatever. And we've seen what happens
Yeah, it
when
might
this.
have to be for the whole trip.
Yeah, it's going to have to be for the whole trip. You can't just have someone try and meet you on the middle of that trip. It usually doesn't work out timing wise. So that's another problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's 4 game that trip is
Yeah,
4 games.
yeah.
So that is a fair point. I think that will have an effect on the decision-making process. So that's something to keep an eye on. But if we go your way, Russ, and just send him back at the end of training camp, and then we're looking at most likely 8 defensemen on the
Right.
roster to start the season.
Especially with a guy like
And
Risto who's got an injury history, like,
yeah,
then Eric
yeah, so
Johnson's in, and then you gotta have somebody else ready just in case, right?
right. And so this is where it gets a little dicey, Russ, because we know who they like, and that is Hunter McDonald. Hunter
Right.
McDonald has not proven he can cut
No
it
way.
defensively so far. So how do you think like they evaluate that? And then how does he fit in the kind of realm of possibility here?
I think he's the last choice because I just think he can't hack it. And so, like, where are they gonna put him? Like, you're gonna have him be your number 6? Okay. But look at the teams you're playing. They will exploit him. So, I don't think it's a good idea. So now you're talking about who is more deserving or who is going to play a potential certain role if he makes it.
I think that's the question that you have to ask. Now we do have like the Ronnie Attard situation, which is similar to the Zamula situation from last year that he's got to go through waivers. Based on how he's played so far, I don't think he would have a problem getting through waivers. But you never know these things. But
He may not even be on the team anymore before this. Like, that's unfortunately that's where it seems like the cards are aligning. It wouldn't be if it were my choice, but that's the way it seems like it's playing out. So I don't think they would do the same thing with Zamula for Adard, unfortunately.
No, I don't think so either at this
Yeah.
point, but I don't think he's earned it either. I think Zamula earned it, and I don't think that Attard has earned
Well,
it
I don't
thus
think
far.
Zamula earned it at the point they gave it to him. They were like, "Hey, he's staying here because we can't send him down." And then he earned it after that. I felt that was just the way I saw it.
No,
But
that's fair. I
yeah,
think that's fair.
with Attard, like they're just his age is gonna work against them. They're gonna be like, well, he's 27, screw it. And some other team's gonna pick him up in a heartbeat. Like the first team that has the possibility of picking him up is gonna pick him up.
You think
And
so?
yeah. Oh yeah, because he's
Do
a
you think
big
the
guy.
Flyers think that?
No, I don't think the Flyers think that. Because I think they just feel like he's not accomplishing what they want him to. But I do think another team will take him and say, yeah, there's some things to work with here. Let's try it. That's the way I think it will work out. So I think now is the part of the time in the show where I disappoint everybody. The guy they'll send on this trip will be Louis Belpedio.
You think?
Yeah, and that will disappoint everybody.
I would say it would disappoint a lot of people, maybe not Louis Belpedio.
No, he'll be the happy one.
Well, and honestly, I think he has shown that he can step in a pinch in the past. And when you're going on a road trip like this, there's something to be said for the devil right?
Yes,
I
there's
do,
always that.
and it is like 99.9% sure that he would not get picked up going through
Correct.
waivers. So he's a safe option for the Flyers. He's a proven option for the Flyers. Now, has he played well this preseason?
No.
But we know what to expect from him, in the long run. So, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I could see them doing it just for that initial road trip and then kind of going from there. But I think that, your other options here are, I think Adam Ginning, I think would be a good option because he doesn't have to go through waivers.
Right.
And the way, the opportunities he got last year at the NHL level, I think he did really well. I think he's pretty much outgrown the AHL. So I think he is a very legitimate option here.
Oh, I would use him in a heartbeat, but I just don't think they will. And so I think that's the problem. And I think Andre's probably earned it more than anybody, and they're not going to use him because they're going to be like, well, we have Drysdale. And it's like, okay, like, I know this is a foreign concept, but you actually could put two defensemen on a power play if you want.
Yeah, I just think,
There was a
you're
time when
looking.
that was like the thing.
Sure. I know, I get it. I think that they feel like maybe Cam York is like the Jamie Drysdale light in terms of those things, which is not true.
It's
Don't
not true.
get me
Passing
wrong.
wise, he's great. He just doesn't hit the net.
Yes.
That's the problem.
Right. But I do think Emil Andre is valid to consider. I just don't know that that's the direction that they would go in, and maybe they want Andre to really get it going at the AHL level and then give him an opportunity for a call up. I think all things being equal, they're going to want somebody who's a little bit more defensively oriented.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way they're going to fall. But I mean, there's going to be a time this year when a defenseman's going to get called up, and it probably won't be Emil Andre, and it probably should be. Because again, you can't hold him. My whole argument here is you can't hold him back because he's better offensively than defensively. It's not fair to him.
That is true.
It's not fair to him. Because you don't have to use Cam York on the power play. On power play 2, you don't have to.
Right. And I think that's where it's going to be a needs-based, situational decision, where if they can take somebody who's not a pure defenseman, Andre is the obvious choice, right? Because he's I would say more well-rounded than he used to be, for sure. I think he's gotten somewhat better defensively, but that's not where his mindset is, and that's not where the usage is. So it'll just depend on what the Flyers need at the given time where he could potentially get the call up. And I think that it's, what side they need is going to factor into it.
It shouldn't, though, because he's got Sanheim and York be able to play either side. So, like, that shouldn't even be a question anymore because he's exploited that the last couple of years.
Well, that's true, but I don't know.
Right? I mean, it should take it out of the conversation. It should.
It should, but to be determined. But I think that we're looking at an 8D roster if they don't hold on to Luchanko at
Right.
this point. Looking at the goaltending, I think that based on what we've seen so far, it is not out of the realm of possibility that Makiniemi gets a contract.
I mean, if you give him a contract and at some point Ryan Johansson's camp challenges the ruling with only you'll have less than $3 million cap space. You'll have like, I don't know, 2.8. I don't know what it's going to be. It's wait. No, you'll have 2.2 because it's 3.1 and he'll make like 2. He'll make like 850 or something. Well, Johansson's contract will be more than 2.2 if it gets reinserted, and then you have to make a trade or you have to put somebody on LTIR or you have to do something quickly like that. Is that worth going through that potential machination in a month? Because again, remember what I said, they have time on Johansson's camp to do this, and they're not going to do it at a time where it's convenient for the Flyers. They're not.
Right. And I think that it's a risk that they may want to take. They may not. They may decide they're cool with what they have so far. That would put them at 6 goaltenders in the system with Kolosov in Russia.
Right.
So we'd have Ursin and Fedotov at the Flyers level, then Makiniemi and Peterson for the Phantoms, and then Gahagan and Petrozelli for the Royals. If you give him a 2-way deal at like league minimum, it's not going to be a huge cap hit, but it will come into play if the Johansson things rears its ugly head again. And I just think the chances of that are small, but not zero. And the Flyers are going to have to make a decision on that if it comes to it. I think we need to see more from Makiniemi for sure before we make that decision.
Yeah, I mean, another scenario is Fedotov gets hurt, but he can't be on LTIR. You've got to bring up Peterson, and now that's an extra 3.8 against the cap, and now you can't afford that because you don't have 3.8 because you signed Makiniemi, you only got 2.2, so you can't bring up Peterson. Like that eliminates bringing up Peterson. So now you have to bring up somebody else because that's the only way you could afford
it. Depends on if it's a 2-way deal and he's just on the Phantoms. I think it would be okay, but I think it depends on what kind of.
Well, no, I mean, but he would have to be the guy coming up. You couldn't bring up Peterson because you wouldn't be able to afford it.
True.
Because they're saving money with him at the AHL level against the cap, and now all of a sudden that money comes back on and you don't have it.
Yep, that is true. That is true, but to be determined.
But I think this to be an accounting show. I don't want this to be an accounting show. Trust me, people. It's not
just
me.
On skill alone, though, I want to see more from Makiniemi. I think he's played well so far.
He has, absolutely.
So looking forward to seeing more of that. All right, you all have some really great questions for our mailbag. We are going to get to that coming up next. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. One of the things that I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy because you can avoid busy work. I use it for scheduling, screening, and messaging. You can connect with all those candidates faster. Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Got 140 million qualifications and preferences every day. Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use it, the better it gets. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Go there right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On Flyers. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. All right, digging into some of your comments and questions out there. Cameron Dunn said that he disagrees with you, Russ, on what the options are for Matvei Michkov on the roster. He thinks that Tippett and Frost are the two best options. For line mates, they burst from zone to zone and back off the defense, letting a slower rookie to gain the zone after it's, simple drop passes or cross ice trailer plays to Michkov and watch him cook. They shouldn't put him with Coots and Forster. Now, I know that we kind of split the difference here in this conversation, that we said yes to Frost and not necessarily Tippett. So why don't you clarify why you said that?
I said that because it's just the way Tippett plays. Like, you're now going to ask Owen Tippett to kind of be the guy that digs in the corners. When do you see him doing that? That's just not his game. So you have to get somebody to do that when you have two other guys that are playmakers. There's just only so many playmakers to go around, only so many shots to go around on a line.
Right. And Frost will do it. I mean, he does, but I think that's not his main goal. And especially if he's out there with Michkov, he's going to be wanting to make plays, right?
Right.
So
they're going to want to make plays. If the puck goes in the
Yeah.
corner and Tippett could take it from the corner to the net, that's what that other guy does, but that's not his game.
Yeah.
That's why I say
think
that.
Farabee is better at that.
Farabee's better at that.
Yeah. So I think that
And he's better at around the net, like going to the net when the other guys have the puck. He does that naturally. Tippett seems to stay on the sides more, on the hash.
Right. And he and especially when Tippett takes a shot, he generally just curls off and skates away.
Correct.
Right. He's not going to stay around to continue the play as much as Farabee.
And that's why I say that.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I'm right. It's just my guess.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. But I want Frost and Michkov like attached at the hip.
Me too.
For this, Fancy Freunds commented, Russ had a good point. I can't believe I'm saying that.
That's funny.
As good as Michkov was, I would like to see him shoot on net. And I think overall he'll need to work on his shot at the NHL. The goaltending is just much better here than in the KHL.
We agree. Fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't speak for me, Russ, but I do agree in this case.
Yeah. And it's not like I'm saying like he stinks at it. I'm just saying you could see that that's the part of his game where he's less confident right now.
Yeah. And he'll get there. I have no doubt that he'll get there.
No question.
I think it's just going to take some time and some encouragement and Morgan Frost to dish him the puck from behind the net as opposed to vice versa. Right.
Yeah.
Jordan wanted to know, are there any concerns so far with the guys that had surgery in the offseason? That's Couturier, Drysdale, and Ristolainen.
Well, Ristolainen did look a little slow to me. Otherwise, he was playing good D. But still, it's a worry. If he's a little slow, what's that going to do? Drysdale, I have no worries about. I think he's fully healed. I don't think there's any issue there. Couturier, after yesterday, that's a game where he could have tried to be the leader on the offense, and he provided no offense, and that's a little scary.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think Couturier is going to be okay. I think he's just at that point where he needs a lot more runway to get up to, early midseason status. That's kind of like a running thing that people say. Somebody's in full midseason form, right?
Okay.
Couturier takes a longer now to get there, and so I'm not worried now. If he looks like this in 3 to 4 weeks, maybe I'll be worried.
Yeah.
Netcentric commented, it's a shame that Ronnie Attard forgot how to play hockey over the summer. We talked about him a little bit, but is there a path for Attard to get back on the train?
I don't think there is with this team. There just doesn't seem to be. Did he forget how to play hockey? No. Did he get the best guys to pair with him in the preseason, as we pointed out last game? No.
Yeah, I think so. It makes me so frustrated because I've seen what he can do when he's at his best. And, the versatility that he has. He's a two-way player. He can get involved offensively, but he does get back. He has the speed to get back defensively. He's really good on the power play when it's cooking. And I just feel like there's just something missing right now. And he's lost some confidence out there. And I just don't know what he has to do to get it back.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I don't think we're going to get the time for him to figure it out.
No, I don't think so either. I just want to point out we didn't mention it in our goaltending discussion, but Carson Bjarnason was sent back to Brandon for this season, so he's not a part of the discussion this year, which we knew already.
Right.
We knew he was going to go back. It was just a matter of the timing, but I think he did really well at camp this year, and he showed out really well. And
He did,
he'll just have to have like a good year in Brandon. We'll see if that's
which is
possible.
hard. That may not be possible,
Yeah.
but maybe he'll get traded.
Maybe if he gets an opportunity to get traded to a contending team,
That would be great.
and that would be really great to see. So hopefully, Danny Briere can, put the thumb on some scales around
Yeah,
junior
but it'll be
hockey
nice.
to
It'll
make
be
that
nice. It's really
happen.
up to his junior team, but yeah, it'd be nice
Yeah.
if he could just get traded.
Yep. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for that. That'll do it for today's show. We will be back tomorrow with a preview of Flyers versus Islanders preseason action, as well as any other updates from training camp. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you want us to answer your question like we just did, you can let us know on Twitter at LockedOnFlyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. Now go check out Locked On NHL, where the local experts keep you updated daily on all the biggest storylines ahead of the season. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.